Well, Falls Church, Virginia, it's good to see you this morning. That's the type of energy I'm looking for, y'all. Y'all got that energy like you ready to meet the next president of the United States. I love it, I love it, I love it. Well, I am former Virginia State Delegate Michael Futrell, and I am here today to support an amazing candidate. Yeah, I know that's right. I know y'all know about it. Let's go. In 2013, I was able to make history when I got elected to the Virginia House of Delegates. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah! You know, but I've lived a life where everyone continues to say, well, Michael, can't you just be realistic, right? And I tell people all the time, you're talking to the young black man who was raised by a single father next door to a drug house. If I only believed in what people told me was realistic, my life is not a possibility, right? Preach! Being the first ever elected African American to represent Stafford County in 350 years. It wasn't about me. It was about the people. And that is why we are here today. Because, amen, go ahead and clap for that, because it's true. We are in a time right now where this is not just about making history, right? Because Amy Klobuchar has already made history, being the first woman elected to the U.S. Senate in Minnesota, right? Yes, this is about beating Donald Trump, but she's already proved that she can do that when she won those 42 rural congressional districts in Minnesota that Donald Trump had won. But this right here is about us being effective. This is about us accomplishing things. And she's continued to show that over and over and over again. Being one of the most effective U.S. senators that we have today, passing over 100 bills in the U.S. Senate.
Got that right.
Now, for those of you who have followed me, whether you're up there or down here, you know, I've been a part of some amazing campaigns. I've had a chance to be able to inspire hope and change. I've been one of the people who helped lead a revolution. But right now, what we are about to do is we're going to bring out the U.S. Senator that I truly know and I truly believe can help bring together this big tent party and unify our nation. Because it's not just about winning, it's about getting things done. So put your hands together, stand on your feet, as we welcome our next president of the United States, U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar.
It's been assumed I'm softer and irrelevant, cause I refuse to downplay my intelligence. But in the room with thugs and rather veterans, why am I the only one who's acting like a gentleman? Good form, bad taste, really what a waste. All that style, not a thing to say. Looks to me like a little of your penis at a shallow end of the cycle. All cloak, no jacket, just smoke and swagger. I hope that you're mad at stuff, cause I found a skill that I like to see things don't matter. Check me out, know I got glass for. Don't forget the bull in the china shop. There's a Chinatown in the blueprint. Always switch fire in the fist like that. Swinging every bitch cause with me in light. Forget the bull in the china shop. There's a Chinatown in the blueprint. It's all in the fist fire. Get a little pulling petals off my bike. Got a strike while the island is still hot. No telling what the kids might like. And I love this job, but good God, sometimes I hate this business. It's all love like change, but then the ones get you gotta stay out with your mother doesn't listen. Excuse me, so we don't treat them so the population's growing all the time. And if you know this, where the scale is, grab a chisel, add one to the number on the sign. Like, forget the bull in the China shop, there's a Chinatown in the blueprint. Always switch fire in the fist, lighting at the pit, swinging every pitch, with me in like.
grateful for your leadership and your incredible work, and I'm so honored to have your support. It really means a lot. Standing next to Michael is my husband, John, right here. If you saw me pause when I was coming up, he said, I have to go get on a flight. And then I was saying, where are you going? So he's going to Maine and Massachusetts. So we're excited that he'll be there. So thank you for that. And then I also wanted to recognize our incredible organizers here, Emma, Sydney, Maria, and Gabrielle. Thank you for your work. And as I just was coming in, saw a few good friends, Sharon and Connor Cummings, who are leaders with the disability community. Look at, there you are, man. Thank you. And then I also wanted to recognize someone that you probably have not met, Cindy Vindman, who is the sister-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Vindman. Virginia gets this. The respect for our military, the respect for our federal employees, this idea that people devote themselves to our country regardless of party. I saw a few Republicans on my way in that were proud to identify. There we are, there we go. Some of them are being quiet right now. It was my friend John Mccain, actually. One of the last things when John and I visited him, he showed me some words in his book, which reminds me of Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, actually. And the word said this. It said, because he was having trouble speaking at the end, and it said, "There is nothing more liberating in life than fighting for a cause larger than yourself." About what this election is about. It's what you showing up here in the middle of a Friday when you could be doing so many other things, how much this means to me, because I think you understand that that's what my campaign is about, that it's a little different than some of the other people that are running for president. It's one of the reasons that I announced in the middle of a blizzard and went through with it in the middle of a blizzard. It is one of the reasons that I announced on an island in the middle of the Mississippi River, because I wanted to make the point that it is time to cross the river of our divides to get to a higher plane in our politics. And that I wanted to make the point that when things go wrong, our country, we stand together. We don't divide. And that point where I announced was actually just about 1.5 miles from where that 35W bridge collapsed in the middle of a beautiful summer day, and it's right near our house. And that place means so much to me, not only because of what happened there and the people that we lost, but also what people did when it happened. And I think this is a lot about the spirit of this great state, the extraordinary courage of people, ordinary people, when things happen. What do they do? What do they do in their job when they're threatened? What do they do when they've got to help someone, or when they've got to come up with a split-second decision about what they're going to do? That's what happened that day on that bridge. What you saw, and no one knew what had happened, this humongous highway crashing into the river, 55 cars and trucks submerged. So what do people do? Off-duty firefighter that was walking by tethers herself to the side of the river and dives in and out looking for survivors in the cars and trucks. A tasty truck driver who has 1 second to decide what to do. He could have rammed in the back of a school bus of kids. But instead, he veers off to what he must know in that second is almost certain death, and burns to death in his cab, but saves the kids in the school bus. The school bus that plummets 30 feet down and is hanging on the side of a guardrail and there's a camp counselor on that bus named Hernandez. He has 1 second to decide what he's going to do when the doors open up, because it looks like the whole bus is going to go over, and he could have just run out. But instead, he got every single one of those kids off that bus to safety. That is our country. That is our country. That we are a country of shared dreams. That we have each other's back. And that what I think brings us together, I hope what brings you to come to see me today, is this simple concept that the heart of America is so much bigger than the heart of the guy in the White House right now. So much bigger. So much bigger. So one of the reasons I'm looking forward to debating Donald Trump is because our backgrounds are so different. Well, for one thing, I'm going to be able to say the Midwest is not flyover country to me. I live there. The people in this country are not poker chips at a bankrupt casino to me. They are my friends and my neighbors. And that, you know, while you were given $413 million in the course of your life from your dad, this is my family's trust. My grandpa was an iron ore miner. He worked 1,500 feet underground. He had 9 brothers and sisters. He wanted to be in the Navy like so many great Navy members out of this state, but he couldn't do that because he had very sick parents. He was the oldest boy, and he had to go to work. His parents died. The youngest, Hannah, the youngest sister, was sent to an orphanage in Duluth, and he promised that he would go get her. And 2 years later, he borrowed a car, drove to Duluth, and brought her back. And every day he would go down in that cage with this black lunch bucket that my grandma would pack for him. And I always thought about, did he think of that life at sea? Did he think about picking blueberries that he loved and hunting? I don't know, but he did his job. That was his duty. And after a while, the mines, which had been so dangerous, got safer and safer because of unions, actually. The unions that made those mines safer. And it enabled him and my grandma to save money in a coffee can in their basement to send my dad to a 2-year community college. And you know, you cannot fit $413 million in a coffee can in the basement of a little house. But they did that, and then my dad got to that 2-year community college degree. Then he got a 4-year degree at the University of Minnesota. And then he went on to become a journalist. And he traveled the world, and he wrote about all kinds of stuff, including politics. But for a long time, one of his main jobs was he covered the Minnesota Vikings. I'm just trying to show you that I'm resilient, okay? And he actually once wrote a book in the early 80s that is sadly still relevant today. It was called, Will the Minnesota Vikings Ever Win the Super Bowl? So then my mom grew up in Milwaukee, which is going to be the site of our national convention. She was the kid of immigrants. They didn't have money. She wanted to be a teacher. She moved to Minnesota, and she taught 2nd grade until she was 70 years old. And I still talk to people that tell me she was their favorite teacher. So I stand before you today as the granddaughter of an iron ore miner, as a daughter of a teacher and a newspaper man, as the first woman elected to the U.S. Senate from the state of Minnesota, and a candidate for president of the United States. And that, friends, is because we live in a country of shared dreams. That no matter where you come from, or who you know, or the color of your skin, or how much money you have, or where you worship, or who you love, that you can make it in the United States of America. And that family trust, when people give you opportunity, When they give you, like my grandpa did for my dad, who did that for me and my mom, when they did that, whether it's a family member, a grandparent, whether it is someone at work, whether it is a teacher that gave that to you, I figure you do not go into the world with a sense of entitlement. You go into the world with a sense of obligation. An obligation to lift people up instead of shoving them down. An obligation to bring people with you instead of hoarding it for yourself. An obligation to lead with decency, which gets me to the topic at hand. There are a lot of people watching those debates. Okay, those debates have gotten pretty wild, all right? So at that last debate, now just so you know, I think that the president went after Mayor Bloomberg for being 5'4". I am the only one that is actually 5'4" that is on that stand. So I have this little step that I stand on so you can see me, okay, at that debate. And at that last debate, the vice president and Tom Steyer were going at it about something, and Tom Steyer was getting closer and closer as they were arguing, if you saw this picture, into my space, and I couldn't back away because I would have fallen off my step. And so then I'm just stuck there, and he's motioning, and it's really close to and then I kind of thought, you know what, he's got really deep pockets, so if something goes wrong, I'll be in pretty good shape myself. I guess I got slugged off that stage. But I think that one of the things that I always think about is there are people watching those debates who stayed home in 2016, right? There's people watching those debates who stayed home in 2016, but then, by the way, they voted, boy, did they vote big time in the state of Virginia in 2018. Or maybe in 2016, some of them voted for Trump, some of them voted for someone else, and they're trying to figure out what to do. And believe it or not, they don't agree with everything that's said on the debate stage. I don't agree with everything that's said on the debate stage, but for them, there are economic issues. This president has made all kinds of promises. He made promises to rural America and to rural Virginia, right? That he was going to do all this stuff for them. What's happened? Has he done anything about rural health care? No. It's gotten harder. Rural education, rural broadband. It's still easier to get high-speed access in the country of Iceland with all their volcanoes than it is in rural Virginia. That is a true thing. He has made promises about prescription drug prices. He went on Fox News and said he would bring prices down so low it would make your head spin. Well, our heads are spinning, but because they're so high. He made promises about education, all kinds of things. So it is an economic check for many people. But it is more than that, and that is the key to this. It is also a decency check. It is this. This idea that back not that long ago, I know my parents would turn on the TV when a president was speaking, even if they didn't vote for that president, because they thought it was their obligation as a citizen to watch that, to have their kids watch it. Now, you tune this president on at one of his rallies and a kid walks in the room, you have to mute the volume because you're afraid of what he's going to say. And there are a lot of people that know that. I think about this guy in Minnesota who is a cattle rancher, and he took me on a tour of his ranch on this ATV, and we were dodging these big cows, and I thought, this is not how I want to die. And we went inside, and everyone had left, and he says, you know, we voted for Trump. And I said, what do you mean? The ranchers, your family? He said, no, I mean, I did, but I don't like to talk about myself, so I say we. And he said, and we did it because we were mad about health care. And then he said, we saw him standing in front of that wall. And I said, no, the wall really isn't built. And he said, no. The day after the inauguration, the CIA wall. And this guy remembers when our president stood in front of that sacred wall that's covered in the stars of the anonymous CIA agents many of them from this state or lived in this state, that lost their lives in the line of duty. And our president had the gall to give a partisan speech about the size of his crowd in front of that wall. And this guy remembers that. Then he said the Boy Scout Jamboree. And these are maybe not things, but he remembers when Trump gave a highly partisan speech to a group of Boy Scouts. We then had a discussion about my husband had been a Boy Scout, and I noted that his family has 6 boys, and 5 of the 6 became Eagle Scouts. But I never like to say which one didn't make it because I don't want to embarrass my husband. So, he's gone now. He went to Maine. He's gone. He's gone. He's not here. That was that guy. Or the voter in northern New Hampshire who was in a long line of people and they'll have stickers. I'm a climate change voter. I'm a reproductive rights voter. I'm a Supreme Court voter. I said, sir, you don't have a sticker. He had a brown jacket. He says, yeah, that's because I was a Trump voter and they don't have stickers here for us. And these are my neighbors and they don't know it. So don't say anything, but I am not doing it again. So that is the decency check. The patriotism check. I see veterans right out there. Thank you for your service. The patriotism check. The patriotism check is about a president that stands next to Vladimir Putin at an international conference, the G20, and when he is asked about interference in our election by a reporter, our president turns to that ruthless dictator and makes a joke about it. Think about it. Hundreds of thousands of Americans, thousands of Virginians have lost their lives on the battlefield standing up for democracy, for our democracy, for democracies abroad. That's what World War II was about. 4 little girls at the height of the civil rights movement in that church in Alabama, they lost their lives. Innocence, because they were trying to be part of that democracy and other people were trying to shove them out of it. The best moments and the worst moments in our country's history are about democracy and our rights and our freedoms and who's willing to stand up for them and who's not. And this president makes a joke about it. So I don't want us to shut out those voters. I want us to bring them with us in addition to our fired up Democratic base. And I have the proof point. The governor of Kansas, Laura Kelly, she ran with a fired up Democratic base and she brought a whole lot of people with us. What just happened down in Louisiana, right? Where we re-elected a Democratic governor. In Kentucky, just a few months ago, where Mitch McConnell now has a Democratic governor. And the state of Virginia, where you completely flipped the incredibly diverse group of candidates from all over your state. I met them, I've worked with them. I was there in that first time when they nearly got what was like it was like a coin flip or whatever. It's just such a success story in your state. And by the way, I wanted to add one thing, since I've been able to live off that success story to a certain extent over the last few decades, is that when I got elected to the U.S. Senate, I remember, right, like a week before the election, and our daughter was like 12, and I was around the corner, and I heard someone, an older friend, asking our daughter what was the first thing she wanted to do when she moved to Washington. And, you know, they thought she was going to say visit the Lincoln Memorial, all those things. Well, what they didn't know is she was watching all those house hunting shows and those decorate, and she said, decorate a new condo. In any case, what we ended up doing, because of my friends actually, Blanche Lincoln and Mark Pryor, who had their kids in the Northern Virginia schools, in Arlington, be specific, we ended up renting first in Roslyn, and then we rented a house, and she attended the Arlington schools. She graduated from Washington and Lee. We came to Falls Church all the time. I know we come here for breakfast. We went to that garden store. We went to the pottery place. I still have the paint you're on. Yeah, I know, really cool. So, but anyway, I was just able to see, because of the change and the investment in the schools, that beautiful school in Washington and Lee, and this incredible. I saw the pride. What? Okay, good. The new name. Thank you. I got it. Justice.
Liberty.
Okay, one person. Washington Liberty. Thank you. And I was able to see what that meant with a school that had, I think, over 50% free and reduced lunch, something in those numbers, and was able to see the investment in Northern Virginia in a school like that, and what a difference it made in those kids' lives, and how proud they were of that school and all the activities. So I just want to say thank you for the politics, for what you've done to elect people. Thank you from my heart, but on behalf of so many families in this state. So let's get back to what we're talking about with this decency check, patriotism check. The other thing that I think is really, really important here is that we have an optimistic economic agenda for the people of this country. And that optimistic economic agenda means things like reducing health care. And I think we have a clear choice right now for the top of the ticket. I am someone that believes we should build on the Affordable Care Act, not blow it up. That's trying to blow it up in the White House and kick people off of their insurance for pre-existing conditions, despite all the work that we did, that hard work to build a coalition to protect those protections. I'll never forget being in a small town parade and a woman with her toddler in a stroller says, "This is my son. He has Down syndrome. I will do anything to fight for his health care." And then she says, "This is what a pre-existing condition looks like." She knew those words because they don't come off the tip of your tongue. She knew those words because we worked hard and we built around that, and we brought in the disability community, we brought in the senior community, and we made a case. That's what I don't want to tear down. And I think we need to make things better. I would do it with a non-profit public option to bring down the premiums. I would do it with building on it with long-term care, taking on an elephant that doesn't even fit in this room, to make it easier for people to stay in their own homes and build more affordable housing for people in this community. I would do it by taking on, without the stigma, addiction and mental health. For me, this is personal. My dad struggled with alcoholism his whole life. By the time John and I got married, he had 3 DWIs. At that point, the judge says jail or treatment, and he chose treatment. And in his words, he was pursued by grace because of his faith and his family and that treatment. And he is now 91. He's in assisted living. His AA group still visits him there. And in his words, it's hard to get a drink around here anyway. So I think that everyone should have that right to be pursued by grace. And there's going to be a whole ton of money that's going to come in from those opioid lawsuits. I think having a president that understands how you do that and where that money should go with treatment and making sure that mental health is not left behind when we look at hospital beds and we look at counselors in school and the like, that is going to make the difference. Having enough workers, and Virginia knows this well, to work in the areas where our economy needs them. So what does that mean? And I know there's this free college for all bumper sticker thing. I get this. But I actually think there's a better way and a bigger way to look at it. And that is where our economy and how do we fit our education system better